Welcome. Week 11, Chapter 11 from my book, You Don't Really Believe in Astrology, Do You? Of all of the book, this is my absolutely favourite chapter. I really love it because what we're doing here is seeing ourselves in a bigger context of natural cycles. We're looking at the cycles of the sun and the moon and the earth and how that defines our circadian rhythm, how there are many biochemical markers which change throughout our day of uric acid levels and blood pressure levels. We are responding to a circadian rhythm which essentially is defined by the movement of the earth. So however much we as human beings feel that we're too rational to be defined by nature, inevitably we are part of those natural cycles. Just as we see in nature with plant life, animal life, leaves emerging in spring, dying back in autumn, everything responds to those interlocking cycles of nature. And this chapter also looks at the interdependence of all things, which I think is really fascinating. And in doing research for this chapter, I discovered that the earth has a pulse. It has a very powerful resonance, and we as human beings are hardwired into that pulse of the earth. And if we're separated from that pulse, the research has been done that very quickly we become quite unwell, physically, psychologically, we become quite unwell, but we revert back to good health when we're plugged back into the earth's natural pulse. So it's really fascinating. And so it's looking at interconnected cycles of nature and how that affects us in the world. And it also looks at some powerful hermetic principles, such as the macrocosm equals the microcosm. And in astrological terms, we use that to be a day for a year. So what we're doing there, and this chapter explains this, is that we're looking initially at the speed of the sun on the day of your birth, time of your birth. We multiply that up in days for the number of years you've lived. So if you've lived for 40 years, we move the sun on at that speed for 40 days. Then add that distance to every single planet in your chart. That is the most powerful technique in astrology. That gives us some very powerful information about what's happening in your life, about your big life changes all through your life, because we're using symbolic time. And that for me is fascinating because firstly it says there's no physical causation from planets to people. There's nothing physical, there's no push or pull because we're using symbolic time. It also says to me that time is way cleverer than we think. Time isn't just linear. So in this chapter, we start to expand our mind about how the laws of the universe work and how cycles work. And we start to see our lives in a bigger context, not just as small people fighting our own struggles and battles, but we start to broaden our horizons to see ourselves as part of an interconnected, interdependent universe. That's chapter 11 from my book, You Don't Really Believe in Astrology, Do You?